every single United States president. Starting off, George Washington. Great president. Uh, if not for George Washington, this country would not exist today. Yeah, he has to go to the top, as tier. Let's, no. Yes, there we go. Next up, next up it's John Adams. John Adams is a very complicated president. Makes a mistake, Alien Sedition Act. He's a smart guy. He plays a key role in founding the country. But as a president, he's kind of underwhelming. Doesn't really do a whole lot. Alien Sedition Act, foreign policy, he manages to keep us out of war. He's a solid, maybe average type president. Let's give him A tier. It was an uneventful presidency, but he was a good manager of the country in the early years. Thomas Jefferson, time to get controversial. Thomas Jefferson really wasn't that great. As a president, was probably worse than John Adams. Embargo Act leads to the War of 1812, which is under Madison. We'll get to Madison in a second. Jefferson, not that great. So, just because of his pre-presidential accomplishments, we're going to give him B tier. Right. Madison, pre-presidential accomplishments, War of 1812, he could have avoided it. He brings us into it. Hundreds of thousands of lives are lost. The economy completely tanks. Things don't work out. America is weakened. Washington, D.C. is burned to the ground. It's embarrassing, very embarrassing time for the country. So, yeah. But again, pre-presidential accomplishments, B tier, pretty average. James Monroe is actually a very good president. His presidency is called the Era of Good Feelings. The country was doing quite well at the time. He also plays a good role. He's the capital of Liberia is named after him because as president, he helped establish the Colonization Society, which freed slaves and moved them to Africa. So he's a good guy. The Monroe Doctrine is very crucial in the United States. It's where basically it affirmed the United States will not be imperialistic. We'll fight against imperialism. We don't want these new countries in South America and Asia to be colonized. Many alliances were formed because of Monroe. Monroe's great on foreign policy. He's very diplomatic. He's a diplomat. He negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, which is Jefferson's main accomplishment as president. So, I think Monroe is very solid, A tier. And in fact, he's better than John Adams. John Quincy Adams, another guy. He becomes president through the corrupt bargain. So, shouldn't have really become president. Should have been Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson's the only guy to probably legitimately, other than FDR, Andrew Jackson's the only guy to legitimately win 3 elections. He would have become president in 1824, but the corrupt bargain with Henry Clay, John Quincy Adams becomes president. As president, kind of similar to his father. Very smart guy, but a little bit uneventful as president. Really didn't have any major accomplishments at all. Let me see. I really don't know much about John Quincy Adams. Foreign policy wise, he did sign he was a very smart guy. Diplomat, was multilingual, negotiated end to the War of 1812. Adams' Onis Treaty got us Florida, played a key role in starting the Monroe Doctrine. He did do like the Build Back Better stuff, federally funded infrastructure projects, I mean, he's solid. He's also going in A tier. Pretty good president, right with his father. So Andrew Jackson is a very consequential U.S. president. He is quite controversial, too, because of the Indian removal. But at the time, the Indian removal was very popular. Everybody wants to do it. He does the protective tariff. He ends the Second Bank of the United States. He does do something quite interesting. He becomes the only president to balance the budget, pay off the national debt. That's pretty good accomplishment. He also really helps the country. Economy's doing quite well when he's president, because of the Indian Removal Act, which was horrible, and he's very pro-slavery, pro-Southern. He's going to go in B tier. Martin Van Buren really sucked. That's just the thing. He was handed pretty solid time, and he responds horribly to the Panic of 1837, where profits, prices, and wages dropped, Western expansion solved, unemployment rose. You know, the Panic was probably because of like decline in cotton prices, so the economy started tanking. The central bank, that's where Andrew Jackson's poor actions came back to bite him. You know, the central bank, lack of central bank, no regulation. Financial crises typically start when there's a lack of regulation. So Martin Van Buren doesn't do anything to respond to it. He tries to kind of do like non-intervention. He tries to do the independent treasury system, which is a horrible idea. It only enhances the financial crisis. Not a good president. He has a very cool haircut though, so he's going in top of the D tier. All right, William Henry Harrison, can't rank him. Too short. Didn't do anything as president. John Tyler was really not a great president. Fugitive Slave Act, not very good. He John Tyler just wasn't that great. A lot of these presidents didn't have that much. He sucked on domestic policy, but he was very consequential on foreign policy. Annexation of Texas, the first United States treaty with China, Treaty of Wangxia, Webster-Ashburton Treaty, which resolved a border dispute with England. Then later he supports the Confederacy, very pro-slavery, obviously Fugitive Slave Act. He's going in C. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't a good guy either. All right, James K. Polk starts the Mexican-American War. Really big win for the United States there. A lot of people die, but it's a very fruitful economic impact. We wouldn't have California or Texas if not for James K. Polk. He expanded the country. Our economy was booming. He gains us the Oregon country. You know, he's done very well as president. He did very well as president. The country was definitely a better place after James K. Polk left office. So he's gonna go in A tier. A tier. He's gonna go in A tier. Zachary Taylor, I actually think Zachary Taylor did a good job. He tried to compromise. He's not a career politician. You know, Zachary Taylor was a compromise guy. He commanded the U.S. forces to victory in the Mexican-American War. He was elected in a landslide. He worked hard to keep the Union together, and because of him, that led to the Compromise of 1850. But unfortunately, he dies in office very early. He did accomplish something very important, though. The Clayton-Bulwer Treaty, which was a treaty between the U.S. and the U.K. Amid growing tensions between the nations over Central America. There was plans to construct a Nicaraguan canal, which were averted. Yeah, and that kept peace. So he's pretty solid. Well, we can put him in B tier, since he didn't do much as president. Right. Millard Fillmore was a horrible president. He did little to nothing to prevent the Civil War from happening. He only exacerbated it. He, you know, he does do okay in the foreign policy, you know. He implements the Fugitive Slave Act. He presided over, like, really crazy debates, and he had no control over the country. It was an embarrassment on foreign policy and domestic policy. He had no control, and, you know, he probably wasn't a bad guy, but he did a bad job. So, you know, he's also going to be put in D tier. Terrible president. All right, on to the next one. That is Franklin Pierce. He was an alcoholic. He watched two of his children die right before his eyes, very depressed, struggled. He was very pro-Southern, did little to nothing to prevent the Civil War. I mean, he could have done a lot. Let's see, let's read more about Franklin Pierce. He Kansas-Nebraska Act was under him, led to the bleeding of Kansas. He didn't care. I think he was just angry at himself and the country. He's gonna go in F tier too. He's horrible. James Buchanan is F tier. He had the opportunity to avert the Civil War. He could have negotiated. He was a good compromiser, good negotiator. He just stopped caring. I don't know why he stopped caring, but he failed to prevent the Civil War, and that was his job. Alright, then on to the most consequential run of all. Okay, Buchanan also intervened to enforce the Dred Scott decision, which is a horrible decision, very pro-slavery. Lincoln. I'm going to say this now. Lincoln did not free the slaves. He did not. That was not him. So Lincoln didn't do anything. He led the victory in the Civil War. He was a good president, did a good job on policy. He appointed the right people that helped lead the Union to victory in the Civil War. The Union won the Civil War. Slavery ended, and he gets to take credit for that. He personally did not do anything to free the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free any slaves. It was very important symbolically, but no, he didn't free any slaves. In fact, he rescinded the military order that would have freed slaves in Missouri. He wasn't even that anti-slavery. That is going to be controversial, but we're going to put Lincoln in A tier just because he appointed the right people. Andrew Johnson is going to be an F. America had the great opportunity to get equal rights for all, make the country a lot better place after the Civil War, but he denied America that opportunity. He's a failed president. He vetoes the Civil Rights Act. He works hard to prevent Reconstruction happening. All right, Grant. Very successful military commander. He's corrupt. He's alcoholic. Doesn't do a good job on managing the economy as president. The economy tanks, but on Reconstruction, he's quite solid. So he's going to go right smack in the middle, right with John Tyler. There's room for him there. Hayes, I actually like Hayes. He's a good president. He tries hard. He's one term. Hayes. I don't know that much about Rutherford B. Hayes. So, he averts the Great Railroad Strike. He vetoed the Bland-Allison Act of 1878, but Congress overrode the veto. He arbitrated territorial dispute. He was an average president. He ended Reconstruction so he could become president, and that's why people don't like him. He's also a C. Very interesting guy. All right, James Garfield. Very smart guy. Very impressive. As president, he unfortunately is assassinated before he can do much. But he is actually very progressive on civil rights. He appoints many blacks to important positions, very moderate. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Chinese Exclusion Act. That's what ruined. Yeah. Whew. Civil service, though, he did some good stuff for the country. He's gonna go the average tier B. Grover Cleveland was very good president, actually. He responds quite well to the Grover. He's not very good on civil rights, but there's a depression while he's president, but that wasn't his fault. He's anti-imperialist. I really like that. It was not his fault, that depression. He kept the railroads moving. He supported the gold standard. He's a moderate guy. He's not afraid to buck from the party. Yeah, I like him in the B tier. Is gonna go in D. He sucked. He did a bunch of tariffs that ruined the economy. It was his fault. His economic mismanagement was what crashed the economy. Benjamin Harrison was a horrible president. McKinley, he gave Teddy Roosevelt a wonderful economy. He helped expand the United States, boosted our economy. He was the only guy who made tariffs work. Tariffs were able to make the United States government very wealthy, allowing Teddy Roosevelt to do many of the great things that he did. McKinley is going in A, and then Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, what happened to McKinley? No, McKinley's an A. What a great president Teddy Roosevelt was. He is going right to the tippity top in the S tier. He did a great job. The averted wars abroad. The economy was booming. He averted strikes. He was pro-union. He was progressive. The Democratic Party would not be the party that he was progressive Republican. Did a great job. All right. Taft, uneventful presidency. He's going in C. Really uneventful. Woodrow Wilson. I actually enjoy Woodrow Wilson. He presided over a successful economy. He was horrible on race, but his policies were good. He really did a good job as president, and I admire him for that. Woodrow Wilson was a good president. Harding was corrupt. So, and I don't like people who are corrupt. He's going in D. Coolidge was a very good president. Indian Citizenship Act. Some of his policies might have led to the Depression, though. That's why he gets bumped down a little bit. But we're on to the next guy, Hoover, whose Smoot-Hawley tariff really enhanced the Depression. There's a great Alan Lichtman video about the Smoot-Hawley tariff that I recommend. Yeah, he can go in F. Good guy, but terrible president. FDR is great president. The New Deal brings the economy back from the Depression, creates millions of jobs, then presides over the United States' victory in World War II. Negatives. Japanese internment wasn't too great on race, of course. Yeah, but he does a lot for this country. He changed America. Does a good job. Right, Truman continues the economic success of FDR. Drops the atomic bomb, ends World War II, gets us into the Korean War. Big mistake. So that's why he's not an S. He's an A. Let's reorganize the A tier. Wilson should go up. You know, by the way, World War I was unnecessary. Wilson should not have gotten us into World War I. But he did get us into World War I, and it worked out. He creates the League of Nations. That's a great accomplishment. Let's put... This is a great ranking for A so far. There is going to be more people in A. Yeah, all right. So on to the next guy. Eisenhower is a S tier president. Presides over a booming economy. Ends the Korean War. America is powerful, respected abroad. He's a great military commander, great commander-in-chief, really unites the country. He's one of the most popular presidents. He's the last Republican to win the black vote. Very popular, wins re-election in a landslide. The economy is booming. He builds the most impressive infrastructure in the country. The interstate highway system is because of him. Great president. S tier. We can reorganize the S tier at the end, but Kennedy, great president, goes in the right near the tippity top of the A tier. The Peace Corps, peace treaties. Negative. Why he's not in the S tier is the Bay of Pigs invasion. Horrible. And then his response to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Probably couldn't have gotten into the Cuban Missile Crisis if we didn't have that disastrous embargo. You know, but domestic policy presides over a good economy also gets us to Vietnam, so that's why I'm going to bump him way to the back of the A tier, because I just thought of that. Alrighty. On to Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson presides over the Vietnam disaster, so that's why he's a very bottom A tier. But Medicare, Medicaid, great programs, Civil Rights Act really changes the country, desegregation. You know, the economy is booming, inflation is low. Domestically great, foreignly, he sucked. Right, Nixon, domestically great, where he's corrupt though. So, where do I put him? The Cambodia stuff sucked, so, you know, he's gonna go to the top of the D. Top of the D. He did a great job domestically, was corrupt though. He was corrupt. The economy did well as president. He was a good manager of the economy, very good on the environment, conservationist, Very smart guy. Foreign policy, actually, the good outweighed the bad. He was not he was not ardently pro-Israel. He's the first guy who told Israel that you need to work things out. You need to make peace. Gerald Ford, I like Gerald Ford. He pardons Nixon. Other than that, he's a good president. Should go to the top of the C tier. That's a good place for him. Uh, Economy started faltering under him. Probably could have done a better job managing that, but he's kind of a weak president. Didn't do much. Jimmy Carter, R.I.P. C tier 2. The Panama Canal Treaty. Hopefully we get the Panama Canal back under Trump. Panama Canal treaty was a huge mistake. If he had not done that, he would be ranked higher. Also, the economy sucked. Did a bad job responding to the economy, the energy prices. Couldn't do anything. In the hostage crisis, couldn't bring the hostages home. Much like Joe Biden, who we will get to in a second. Right, Reagan. Top of the B tier. What he did for this country was outstanding. He brings the economy back. But the deregulation led to a recession. The Bush era recession was not that bad of a recession, but it was probably because of Reagan. Reagan should be in the A tier, if not for that. He also, invasion of Grenada, unnecessary. But in his second term, the conciliatory approach to the Soviet Union makes the world a much more peaceful place. His policies lead to the fall of the Berlin Wall, end of the Soviet Union. This guy, end of B tier. The Gulf War was unnecessary, but it ended in a great victory and a restoration of American confidence. Same thing with the Panama War. Great victory, restoration of American confidence. He defies his party to raise taxes, which was the right thing, because we would have gotten into the worst deficit in history if he had not defied his party and raised taxes in 1990. Read my lips, no more taxes was a mistake, but I think he's a great guy, good president, really meant well. Yes, you can see, I think a lot of presidents were fairly solid, nobody really sucked. William Jefferson, Clinton, great president. Top of the A tier. He's only not an S because he lied to the entire country. And then there's something called the Graham-Leach-Riley Act, which was the main cause of the 2008-2009 financial crisis. Oh my God. If not for that, I would be comfortable putting in him the S tier in spite of the impeachment. I will list his accomplishments for you. The Family and Medical Leave Act, the Brady Bill, the Crime Bill makes America very safe. The Economic Recovery Act brings us completely out of that recession that we had under George H.W. Bush. He makes America one of the greatest nations in the world. When America was greatest, it was at the end of the Bill Clinton presidency, right before 9/11. The United States was an economic surplus. He balanced the budget. Bipartisanship was running high, actually. He actually worked across the aisle to do a lot. He reformed welfare, cut government costs. He negotiated on foreign policy. He was great. He negotiated peace treaties in Bosnia. Yeah. Bosnia and Kosovo, and he even almost made peace in Israel, Palestine, and in North Korea. Yeah, all right. George W. Bush, horrible president. Honestly, domestically, he wasn't that terrible. The recession was not his fault. But on foreign policy, he's the worst president that we have ever had. He starts 2 wars that he didn't need to start, results in the loss of tens of thousands of American lives and millions of lives of people from other countries, starts the most unnecessary war in history that leads to the rise of ISIS and all this terrorism. He enhanced terrorism. The war on terror failed because of George W. Bush. Because of those foreign policy failures, yeah, he just sucks. I'm sorry. I have no remorse for his horrible foreign policies. All right. Obama. Obama was horrible on foreign policy. When it comes to Syria, Libya, those were terrible. He kills bin Laden. That was great. The Cuban thaw almost ended the embargo. He should have just ended the embargo. Why didn't he do that? New START, that was a powerful peace treaty. Affordable Care Act, very important. The Dodd-Frank Act, very important. The Recovery Act brings back the economy from that recession, very important. He enforces America's immigration laws, very important, while also having DACA, very important. Does a good job. But the foreign policy failures and that stupid Libya intervention that plunged the country into a devastating civil war, hundreds of thousands of people died, that's why he's in B. But his foreign policy failures weren't as bad as GW. All right. Trump is a corrupt guy. He's corrupt. There we go. He's corrupt. He lies to the country. He's a liar, pathological liar. Incites the riot on January 6th, is impeached twice. Only guy to have that happen. Other than that, he does a fairly good job. I like how he really stands for border security. I like how he cut taxes on the middle class. The economy was doing great until COVID broke out. His response to COVID, people like to say it was horrible, but it really wasn't too bad. You know, other than the corruption in the riot on January 6th, he wasn't that horrible of a president. And I'm actually feeling very confident in him to bring our country back from the awful presidency of Joseph Robinette Biden, who goes at the top of the F tier. Overspending leads to inflation, high prices, high cost of living. Crime goes up because you open the wide open southern border, leading drugs to come in, killing hundreds of thousands of people. A country is not doing well, withdraw from Afghanistan. America is embarrassed on the world stage, and even your incredible calls for NATO expansion leads Putin to invade the Ukraine, and you just suck. And you let the woke movement rise up. You let all this DEI crap go around. Joe Biden means well. He's an elderly man. He was losing it. He lied to the country about his physical health, almost as bad as what Trump lied to us about. Joe Biden sucked. He didn't do much good for this country. The macroeconomic numbers, he brought them up. Recovers from COVID, brought it up, But Joe Biden sucked. So, right, here is my final list. In A tier, I have George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Dwight Eisenhower. In A tier, I have Bill Clinton, Harry Truman, James Monroe, Woodrow Wilson, Abraham Lincoln. Not an S, guys, not an S. James K. Polk, William McKinley, John Adams, John Quincy Adams, John F. Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson. And B tier, Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Andrew Jackson, Zachary Taylor, James Garfield, Chester Arthur, Grover Cleveland, Calvin Coolidge, George H.W. Bush, Gerald Ford is in C, starting it off. Then Tyler, Grant, Hayes, Taft, Carter, Nixon, Trump. Starting off D, Nixon, Trump, Van Buren, Fillmore, Benjamin Harrison, Warren Harding. All the people in this tier were pretty corrupt. I just in the D tier. And then F, your policy just sucked. I mean, a war criminal, a racist who failed to stop a civil war, failed to bring equal rights for all. Herbert Hoover enhanced the Great Depression, worst economic crisis, and you, actually, Biden does not need to be in that tier, Biden can actually be moved up to D. I'm moving Biden up to D because the inflation sucked, but, also, Biden failed to bring the hostages home. He fails to stop the wars in Ukraine. I mean, he lets Israel just do whatever they want. If Trump was president, I think he could have gotten a hostage deal much quicker because people like him more on the foreign stage. Biden, horrible on foreign policy, average on domestic policy, and lies to the country about his welfare. All right, everybody, this is my presidential tier list. Here's your look at it. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe.